Hello, and welcome to episode 63 of Cora's Place. I am so glad that you've chosen to join me for today's conversation. In today's episode, I want to share with you some of the life lessons that I have learned in 20 years of life so far from when I'm recording this. As always, if you like what you hear, please leave a review and/or comments, follow my podcast, and tell your friends. Also, please follow the podcast page I've made on Facebook. If you'd like to contact me via email instead of a Facebook message, you may email me at corachin@mailbox.org. If you are new here, welcome. I'm your host, Cora, and I am so very excited to have you on this journey with me. Today, I thought it would be fun to share some of the life lessons I have learned and some stories from 20 years of life so far from when I record this. Some of these lessons that I will share are ones that I will probably have to learn or keep learning for the rest of my life, and that is okay. I am not an expert on life, so what I have to do is just try to trust that God will help me. However, that is much easier said than done, but it can be possible if we try. You may not succeed on the first try, though. Sometimes it might take many tries before you get it, and you know what? That's totally okay. Getting practice with things is so important, and it can be very helpful. The first lesson and story that I want to start with in today's episode is that grief can be a very hard thing to go through, but God can give us comfort when we're grieving. I have shared about these in previous episodes, but I just want to summarize them here a little bit. Anyway, my last two great-grandparents, actually husband and wife to each other, have passed away since I started the podcast. My great-grandma in July of 2023, and my great-grandpa in April of 2024. I wasn't necessarily close to both of them, but it was still hard knowing that they had passed away. I actually wasn't even home when I found out that my great-grandma had passed away. To hear more of that story, of why I wasn't home when I found out about her passing away, go back to the episode I posted in September 2023, titled Camp Episode 4, Joys and Challenges of the Summer. Thankfully, as I record this, I have healed from both to some degree. I mean, yes, grief can still be hard at times. Even with those losses, grief does eventually get better. It just takes time. I've gone through other losses besides just my great-grandparents, but I think I only really talked about those in the podcast because they happened since I started releasing episodes. The second lesson and story that I want to share today is about friendships. I actually kind of have two stories with this particular lesson. The lesson is, having friends is an amazing blessing, but sometimes the friendships do end, unfortunately. The story I will start with is a hard story that I will just summarize in this episode. If you want more details, you can go back and listen to episode 34, where I go more in depth about it. I will just try to summarize the story here, though. It is not going to be easy to just summarize it, but I'm going to give it a try anyway. Basically, I had a really close friend who felt like a sister to me, and we shared a lot of things with each other during the few amazing years of our friendship. One year, I had invited her to my birthday party, along with someone from our previous youth group that she didn't talk to anymore at that point. I wasn't sure how she would react if they had both been there at the same time, but thankfully, they were there at separate times, so there weren't any issues. I later told a close friend about the invite and apologized, and she seemed fine with it. Then, out of nowhere, a couple of weeks later, she stopped responding to my texts and calls, which wasn't normal for her. I tried contacting her another way, and that worked. She had told me that her phone was broken. Once it got fixed, we were able to start texting again. However, when we started texting again, it just didn't feel the same to me. Our conversations lacked the meaning and happiness that they once had. A few weeks after that, she called me randomly one day, blaming me for something that had happened a few years before that I wasn't even aware of. After a few awkward conversations after that phone call, she stopped replying to my texts again, and by August of 2020, I realized that our friendship was over. I had a lot of feelings after that, which I had to work through for quite a while. I didn't share much with anyone, except for just a few close friends, but I grieved that loss for a really long time. Even now at times, I still miss the good memories that we had made together. Time and talking to other friends helped a bit, but that loss still hurts sometimes. The good story I want to share with this is with another good friend of mine. I actually met this friend not long after the friendship loss that I just shared about in this episode. I think it was around maybe 2 or 3 months after that friendship loss that I met her. This person and I are even still friends now, as I record this, and have been for about 4.5 years from when I record this. My friendship with her seems like a really good one and really, really healthy too. She encourages me, makes me feel cared about, acknowledges my feelings, listens when I need to talk, and she prays for me. She is so sweet, kind, caring, loyal, trustworthy, wise, fun to be around, compassionate, godly, and supportive. I actually just had a phone conversation with her recently from when I record this, and after that conversation, I realized just how much of a blessing to me having that friendship in my life is, and how important of a friendship it is to me. My friendship with her is definitely one that I want to cherish forever. I also have a few other really sweet friendships that I love so much. Deep, genuine, and healthy friendships are something very important to me, and I never want to ever take them for granted in life. They are much too important to me to do that. I want as many of my friendships as possible to thrive and grow even deeper. To do that, I think it is absolutely so important to spend time developing them as much as you can and getting to know the other person. Having healthy friendships is such an important part of life. It isn't always easy, but it is very special and valuable to have. The deep friendships you have with people can even help you develop better trust with the other person so you can share even more personal things going on in life. If we aren't honest with others, and even ourselves, how can we be able to go through trials on our own? In my life, I know that I tend to do better in a trial when I know that I have people I can talk to. I mean, yes, that trial can still be so hard, but when we have others around us to help and support us, that can make such a difference in our lives. We definitely need to have a good Christian community around us all the time, but especially when we face a trial. Nobody should ever have to face any trial alone. That is not fun to have to face hard things alone. You can always go to God too when you struggle because He is always there. That is something I even struggle to remember in hard moments, but it's something that I know that I need to work on in my life. The third lesson and story that I want to share is this: choose faith over fear. You never know what blessings could be in store if you let fear win and don't choose faith. I also have at least a couple of stories with choosing faith over fear. One is both camp experiences, very similar in some ways, but yet also very different from each other in other ways. My first year that I got to work there was 2023. I made a whole series about it on the podcast, and in that series, I shared about the training week and adjusting to life at camp, fun things we got to do together as a staff, my favorite week of camp, joys and challenges of that time in life at camp, friends I made there, and more. Feel free to go back and listen to those if you haven't yet and want to hear deeper dives into my first summer working at camp. I also made a series about my 2024 camp experience as well, my second year working at that same camp, that you can also go back and listen to. I was definitely a little uneasy at first both times, but I also adjusted relatively quickly too, especially my second year. When I was there my second year, it probably only took a few minutes after my family left from dropping me off, but then I was fine. The other story that I want to share about choosing faith over fear is the first time I ever went to Montana. My very first trip ever out there was in 2021, and I was definitely excited, but also nervous at the same time. We did so many fun things. I unfortunately did get a little bit sick with a cold while I was out there in 2021. However, I had the best doctor and nurse, my grandparents, to take care of me, and I recovered very quickly because of them and God's grace. Those grandparents aren't actually in the medical field, but they were kind of like my doctor and nurse in a way in that time. I will never be able to adequately express in words to them my love and gratitude for everything they have ever done for me in my life. To hear more about the 2021 Montana trip, go back and listen to episodes 9 and 10 of the podcast. I have been out there 2 additional times since then, at least from when I record this, and I always have such a blast going and seeing my family that lives out there and enjoying Montana with my grandparents. Leaving is always the hardest part for me because I don't like leaving there, and I also don't usually know when I can make it out there again. Being out there always brings me so much joy, love, peace, happiness, and excitement. It is one of my favorite places on the whole planet that has some of my absolute favorite people. Montana definitely steals a big piece of my heart each time I go. To hear about my other experiences out there, you can listen to episodes 27 and 42. I'm not sure which of my trips to Montana so far is my most favorite right now, though. So far, as in from when I'm recording this, as they all have had really good aspects to them for different reasons. I definitely want to make future trips out there as often as I am able to and can. I think I would have to say that Montana is probably my most favorite state. I mean, I like a few other states as well. Montana is one of the ones that I have enjoyed most, though, in my life at this point, from when I record this. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please follow, leave a comment, and a review of my podcast if you haven't already, and please follow my podcast page on Facebook so you never miss an update. If you have any verses you'd like me to read on a future episode, or if you have any topics you'd like me to talk about, you can email me at corachin@mailbox.org, or you can send me a message on my podcast page on Facebook through the link in the show notes, and I will get back to you when I can. Hope you tune in next week for episode 64, which is a very special episode of the podcast. I'll explain why next week, so don't forget to tune in.